Hi, welcome to our monthly webinar. Today is a different format. I used to talk about projects on my own previously, but today we have a special guest so that we can have an interactive discussion on some of the interesting work that he's doing. Uh, his name is Dr. Don Samitha Elvitigala, who is a research fellow at the School of Computer Science and Engineering, UNSW Sydney. He was a PhD student in my group and now running uh, his own setup at UNSW. So, without further delay, let's welcome Samitha to this discussion.
Hi,
Hi,
all.
Samitha.
Hi, Suranga. Thank you so much for your nice introduction, and
So,
thanks for inviting me.
no problem. It's a pleasure to have you, and thank you so much for setting aside a bit of time in the middle of very busy schedule. So the idea of today's discussion is to at least get some introduction going regarding some of the interesting work that you are working. To kickstart the discussion, maybe let's start clarifying what is what are these novel food interfaces, and can you give us a brief intro into these new food interfaces that you had been working on?
Yeah. So these food interfaces we named as augmented food interfaces. So let me simply describe the three main qualities of these augmented food interfaces. So first of all, they are integrated to our body, which means they can sort of sense input from our body, and they sort of implicitly understand our body parameters, like center of pressure, like biomechanical parameters, like our gait parameters. So they take these parameters as input, and then sort of create some sort of an implicit understanding about these parameters. For example, it could, by sensing the pressure distribution of our foot, it could create some sort of an understanding about your pressure variation or the center of pressure. And then those interfaces provide some sort of a feedback about it to our body, and then by doing this, either sensing or providing output, or doing both input and output. By doing both input and output, it's those interfaces sort of enhance our capabilities and extend our capabilities.
Right.
So so those type of food interfaces we name as augmented food interfaces.
Right. So just for those who are watching this, for them to easily understand, maybe would you be able to give an example of a
Yeah.
specific interface that you had developed?
First of all, I'll give you an example of non-augmented food interfaces. Then it will be, then I will example give an example what is an augmented food interface. So if you look at some of the early research, even before mouse was introduced, there were similar devices that's pretty much similar to mouse, but you can operate it by using your foot. So that's one of the first food interfaces that you can find in computing
Right.
history,
So
or
so
HCI
so
history.
that is not an augmented food interface, right?
Yes, that is not an augmented food interface. That's basically a food operated interface, because it doesn't really sense our body parameters. It really sense something from our body, but we use our body to control it. We use our food to control that interface, and then by doing that, we control computing devices. So that's a food operated device. But augmented food interfaces are different. They are attached to our body. They are integrated with our body. So one good example is these gym soles that I developed during my PhD studies. So that gym soles, it's basically inbuilt to our shoe as an insole. So it's integrated to our body, and then it sends our pressure distribution, basically, and then create an understanding about where our center of pressure is, and then it create vibration feedback about that center of pressure, and provide that feedback to our foot itself, so that user can improve their posture while performing exercises like squats and deadlifts. So it sort of implicitly understanding our body parameters, and also it enhance our capabilities. And we are not like explicitly controlling the device. It's just implicitly stands with our body, and then uh, helps us to enhance our capability. So that's a good example of an augmented human interface,
Right.
augmented foot
So
interface.
right. So just to reiterate, the pedal on the piano or the pedal on the machine, those are like switches that we control with the foot. Those are not augmented foot interfaces.
No, no.
Whereas something like gym soles, that is uh, connected to our feet, understand our body parameter, and then provide some enhancement. Those are augmented foot interfaces, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So just
Yes.
to another point, for those who are watching, you can ask questions right away. You don't have to wait until end of this the discussion. We can surface those questions as well as we go through. So just a follow up on those. I'm sure when you worked on this over the last 4 5 years during your PhD and now your postdoctoral work, there must have been certain challenges. It's not trivial to create these type of interfaces. What
Mm.
are some of those challenges? The technical challenges, maybe other research challenges. Would you be able
Yeah,
to share some of those challenges?
yeah. So first of all, I think in if you look at SCC point of view, or human centered computing point of view, our foot is the largest limb that we have. So uh, we basically use it for our locomotion, and then we have uh, different walking patterns. Like our gait pattern is changed from person to person, so there are a lot of changes. So when we design these interfaces to our body, it's super important to consider these human factors. And given that our foot is the largest limb, and then since we are always using it for locomotion, so we have to sort of consider applications that matches to this locomotion, that sends our locomotion, and then on top of that we have to build those devices. And then secondly, another thing is, like, in terms of hardware and technical wise, again, since our food is always impact with the environment around us, uh, it's very important to sort of develop these interfaces in a robust manner. And then uh, and on the other hand, as I told you before, not only gait patterns, people, it's not like our hand or our other body parts. So if you look at the morphology of foot, it's different from person to person a lot. So it is important to sort of design uh, interfaces that matches a range of people. So sometimes using pressure sensitive insoles might not the best approach. So you might have to design uh, like tiny sensors which can attach to your shoe, and then can convert any shoe suddenly into a smart shoe. So during my PhD, I had those challenges, how we really design these interfaces that matches to wide range of people. So if you look at some of my work, so I have designed these small sensor tags which you can convert any shoe into smart shoes immediately, instantly. um, so those are the main things that we have to consider. So the first one, we have to consider the natural locomotion of our foot. And then we have to consider that the morphology of our foot is uh, different from person to person. So if you look at, you might find like 50 or more than 50 types of foot foot morphology. So you have to really consider those things.
Right.
And then finally, it's always contacted with the environments, and then especially the ground. So you have to consider how you really uh, take those context as well to your foot interface.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So just a couple more things. Let's
Mhm.
say those who are young researchers, or those who are interested in learning more about these augmented food interfaces, new food IO? What are some of the interesting starting points? Is there any particular website or any particular place that they can see some of your work or any other interesting work related to food interfaces?
Um, so so there are so if you look at like uh, my website and portfolio, so I have done several augmented food interfaces. And then at the moment, if you look at the industry, uh, there are so many tech reviews about current smart shoe and smart interfaces uh, for running and even for cycling, motorcycling, like range of smart shoe and smart interfaces,
Right.
like targeting blind people, targeting cyclists, motorcyclists. So you can sort of
Right.
refer to those things
So
and
your
then
website would be can you
type it.
uh, no,
Uh,
you can just say it out loud,
yeah.
your website address.
So my website is samithaelvitigala.com.
So basically
Just
your middle name and your
my
last
middle
name.
name and last name and then .com. So if you look at that website, you will find range of work on augmented human interfaces, and then uh, yeah. So those are mainly research, and then in that papers I have cited some of the industry work as well.
Right.
So you can read on those work as well.
So before we open the questions from the those who are watching, maybe my last clarification or the point to hear your thoughts is how do you, what's how does the future look like?
Hmm.
What's the envisioned future of these food interfaces? What kind of crazy applications or scenarios can we foresee?
So so what I'm thinking about these augmented food interfaces is, so if you look at the current mobile phone, so we use these mobile phones as our explicit companion. So we use those mobile phones to like create like take phone calls, like control our application. So it's basically like doing some sort of explicit interactions. But if you look at these shoe interfaces, mainly, so these shoe interfaces are discrete. So you can use these interfaces as discrete interfaces, because for example, even now you can't really see my lower extremity. So there are so many applications that you can use these foot interfaces as discrete interfaces, and also it can implicitly understand our body parameters. So I'm thinking that in future these augmented food interfaces can be used as our implicit companions, who sort of discreetly sense our bodily parameters and then use that parameters to provide uh, feedback to our body, and then we can use that implicit understanding to enhance our capabilities. So that's the future that I'm looking for these augmented food interfaces. And also recently I was exploring how we can provide these context awareness to these shoes, for example, like by sensing ground surface. So while you are walking, if we can sense which type of terrain that you are walking, there are a lot of applications that you can open up. At the moment, if you look at the current smart shoes that you can see in market, they don't have this context awareness. But if you can provide these ground surface sensing, for example, just if you can just provide this ground surface sensing capability for these smart shoes, these smart shoes can provide like very fine grained activity tracking. For example, in what sort of terrain that you run properly, in what sort of terrain that your gait pattern is changing, or you are slowing down. And if we can really connect such technology with a automatic mechanism that can change the cushioning of a shoe, you can change the cushioning according to the terrain. And then we are also looking at how we can sort of identify the moisture levels of of the ground surfaces by using these context aware systems, and then can we use that knowledge in applications like bushfire prevention. So basically, like, use these interfaces as crowdsourced data, the data that sends by these interfaces, and using those data as crowdsourced data, and then how we can use those crowdsourced data for the betterment of the entire society, not only for person, for individuals, but also for the entire society. So that's the way, that's the future that I'm thinking, that these interfaces, not only augmented food interfaces, overall the entire augmented human interfaces should go in that direction.
Right. So it may not be far in the future that we see smart shoes collecting data as we walk,
Mm.
harvesting energy, providing us with control. And while having this chat, I can maybe even play a game, or respond to something. If somebody calls me, I can just cancel the call.
Yeah.
Or these tools will help me to exercise better, uh, walk better. Basically becomes a companion that knows me. So that's really interesting. uh, we do have few minutes. If anyone who's watching has questions, you can type them. We'll wait for a couple of minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to type them. uh, you can check out some of these work that Samitha has done through his website. If you go to www.samithaelvitigala.com. Also, if you want to so that's flashing in the screen. Also, if you want to look at what we do in the broader context of augmented human, you can visit www.ahlab.org. Feel free to ask any question, any clarification. Oh, someone actually privately message me saying that the comments are blocked. Uh, would be nice if we can open up the comments. Thanks for that message. We are trying to get this moved. I think hopefully now we fixed that. Let's give few more seconds for those who are trying to ask questions. Now the comment should
Yeah.
be uh, comment option should be available. So feel free to ask questions if you do. Otherwise, uh, you can also send an email directly to Samitha or myself. If you want to reach to Samitha, uh, one way would be samitha@ahlab.org. For myself, Suranga at ahlab.org. So you can send us an email with a follow-up question.
Mm.
We can take it from there as well. Yeah, looks like there's no direct questions. But if you happen to watch this later on, if you want to reach out to us, as I said, you can email us or visit the website. Oh yeah, so there is a question as we about to close. So
Can we see this?
Chaminda Jayalat is asking, can we see this full session again? Yes, of course. You will have this whole session recorded. Uh, the link would be on my Facebook page or LinkedIn page or on YouTube. Uh, so once this session ends, the video will stay there. So if you came to the event, you will see that. Yeah, so I guess with that, we can call it a day for this session. We'll come back with another interesting interactive discussion next month. Till then, enjoy and see you soon again. Once again, thank you so much, Samitha, for joining this session in the middle of very busy schedule.
Thank you, Suranga, for having
Yeah.
me.
So,
Thank you so much.
okay, maybe we'll answer this one last question before we go. Would be an advantage if the record? Oh, yeah. So it's the same
Yeah, so,
question.
yeah, it's the same question. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is recorded, it is available. So Suchira, no worries, you can watch this on the same page, event page again, and it will be also available through LinkedIn and YouTube. So yeah, so thanks for those who joined, and we'll see you next month. And Samita, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much again. Thanks, Suranga.